What is up, everyone? Darkside Phil here, and last night I actually had the pleasure of seeing the brand new Deadpool movie. I wanted to sit down today as soon as I could and give you my full reactions to what I saw. And, this movie is pretty hype and also controversial at the same time because it's the very first R-rated Marvel movie in quite some time, and it's the first Marvel movie that feels like it's purely for adults rather than kind of watered down stuff for the kids. A lot of people were wondering how this movie would turn out, and that's what I basically want to tell you here in this video. So the history of Deadpool is kind of interesting because if you don't know, the main character, Deadpool, is played by Ryan Reynolds, an actor who actually played Deadpool way back when in X-Men Origins. We're talking some, 7 or so years ago. And at that point, there was a lot of controversy because the Deadpool character portrayed in that movie was nothing like the actual Deadpool character from the Marvel Comics, and people were very disappointed. You had mass complaints, and even Ryan Reynolds himself has come out and said he was almost kind of blackmailed into playing that character, being told that if he didn't portray the Deadpool character like he was in that movie, he would never be able to make this Deadpool movie. So, was it worth it? Ultimately, I think that's what everyone is wondering here, and I am pleased to say, yes, I really think it was, based on what I saw last night. Before we get started, warning, minor spoilers. I'm not going to spoil the entire plot of the movie, but at the same time, I obviously have to talk about the characters and a little bit about the plot, so if you haven't seen the movie yet and you totally would want to not be spoiled at all, I don't recommend moving forward. So the Deadpool movie is really based around the origin story of the character. You're going to join in progress a live chase over a highway where Deadpool is racing after some guys who are basically responsible for him kind of being disfigured in the past, and you don't really get too much of what's going on. You just know that he's here to be a badass. And the cool thing about this is that it's full-fledged, high-octane, balls-to-the-wall, violent rated R action. You're going to see limbs flying. You're going to see heads popping off. You're going to see really gruesome stuff like bodies being liquefied. No shit, that actually happens in the movie. And it's pretty cool to finally see a superhero movie where you get to see really gruesome stuff rather than the PG-13 watered-down stuff from other movies. Oh yeah, and holy shit, there's actually adult language in Deadpool. What a novel concept. I mean, oh shit, the world's gonna end, aliens are invading, everything's going to hell in a handbasket, thousands are being exterminated, but you better not say any kind of potty mouth words. God forbid you drop the F-bomb in a Marvel movie, right? That all gets thrown out in Deadpool. It's super designed for adult humor. You've got sex jokes, you've got fart jokes, scat humor, nasty, really gruesome style stuff. Everything that you would expect from Deadpool is in this movie. I really like that. They really, you could tell, put a lot of care and effort and try to make this movie resonate with the comic books. And if you're a fan of the Deadpool character, I would actually be very surprised if you saw this movie and did not enjoy it, because they really did a lot of accurate things to what's been portrayed in the comics books for that character. So the core of this movie is to explore the origins of Deadpool. How did he come about? Going from a formal special ops operative to become this super-powered being with mutant powers who can regenerate. And it really explains how the body got disfigured and all of that. And I'm not going to go into too much detail because obviously that's the meat of the movie and I don't want to spoil it. If anything, the one major complaint I actually have, and I'm going to say this isn't just for Deadpool, this is for all these superhero movies. Why do we feel so inclined in the very first adventure of every superhero to explain their origin story? Like, I'll be honest here, I played the Deadpool video game years ago, and even though it wasn't the best video game, right, it had all the comedy, all the fourth wall breaking of the Deadpool character, and even though it didn't explain his origin story, I thought that the Deadpool video game was outstanding, not for gameplay, but because of the scripting, the dialogue, and the comedy aspect of the game. Why couldn't they have done this for the Deadpool movie? If ever you're going to do a movie where it doesn't matter who the origin of the character is, just do something funny, this would have been the movie. But no, they kind of went the cliche route, and most of the movie is kind of going back with flashbacks, exploring Deadpool's origins of how he got his superpowers. Okay, I guess for the layman you care. I honestly don't. And for me, I grew up in the 1990s. I know the Deadpool who no one knows his origins. We just know he was part of the Weapon X program along with Wolverine, and he has these healing abilities, and no one really gave a two shits about what his origin was back then. Since then, obviously, Marvel has written and rewritten and redesigned the character, and he's this wisecracking guy, but I don't understand why the movie had to be totally about his origin. It was. It's not a bad thing. It's just kind of, I found myself sitting there during the origin parts of the movie, which is roughly about half, saying, When will they get back to the present? When will they get back to the present? When will they get back to the present? Oh, they're back to the present. Now I'm excited again. And it was a little bit of a letdown in that regard, but they went the cliche route. It works. It's just a little bit kind of cliche and disappointing in my opinion. So as you're flashing back between Deadpool's origins and this modern day chase, there's going to be other characters who get involved. First of all, the villain of this movie, whose name is Ajax, but his real name apparently is Francis, which is a running joke in the movie. His name is Francis. Is kind of flat. He's a very generic British-style villain. There's almost no personality to this guy, and I think he was just there as a tool to advance the plot rather than, oh, he's a really legitimate Marvel villain, because he's not. He was pretty lame, and in my opinion, that was one of the big disappointments of the movie. But the other villain of the movie, Angel Dust, is actually played by Gina Carano. Now, for those of you who don't know, I immediately recognized her because she used to be big in the MMA scene. She's a female MMA fighter who was really big. She was very popular. Think of her almost as kind of like the prototype for Ronda Rousey, only that was before MMA were as big as it was today, so she really didn't get as much press. It was cool to actually see her cast in a role like this as this big, almost roided woman who could even stand toe-to-toe with other superpowered mutants. I really liked to see that, and I actually liked her character, even though she had maybe 3 lines, better than the main villain of the movie, and I think that's kind of silly, but hey, it is what it is. Now, the supporting cast has a bunch of cameo appearances that I'm not going to mention because some of them are kind of funny, but the main supporting cast is Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead. I'm not kidding, that's actually her name in this movie. 2 X-Men who just so happen to start trying to help Deadpool or stop him, depending on what part of the movie it is. The one complaint I have about this: Colossus is 100% computer generated. Now, did I expect them to do special effects with his body to make him look metal and not use CGI? Absolutely not. But at least it would have been nice to see him like around the X-Mansion, not covered in metal, because that's kind of what the character is in X-Men. He's not always constantly covered in metal. In this movie he is, which is kind of silly. It's kind of funny also because the running joke in the movie is that they could only afford 2 X-Men and only one of them really is an X-Man because the other one's a new character. But still, they do a good job in their supporting roles. If anything, Colossus actually starts to look like the goody two-shoes kind of a guy in this movie, which in one of his incarnations in the comics, that's actually how he was. So it's kind of an inside joke to longtime Marvel Comics fans and X-Men fans, and I like that. Is there anything to write home about that these characters are in the movie? Not really, but it's cool to see more people than just Deadpool kicking ass, and that was fun. Now, minor spoiler alert, but I was really surprised that the main plotline of the movie was a love story. When you think Deadpool, you think chopping people's limbs off and really, you know, adult-oriented, immature comedy and swearing, and all that's in the movie, but the core of the plot is based around this romantic interest that Deadpool had in the past and how it relates to the present. It's pretty weird, and it's funny, of course, of how they're going to relate that to an action-style superhero movie. I definitely liked it, but I'm wondering how that's going to relate to future Deadpool movies, which they're definitely going to do. If you don't know, this movie already is breaking box office records for an R-rated movie, and people are just, like, crazy going nuts for it because it's the first superhero movie to have this kind of adult-oriented comedy in it. So I don't know how the love story is going to tie into future episodes, but it definitely was a cool thing. Well, ultimately, I don't want to spoil too much about the movie. I certainly think that you should definitely see it yourself if you're into superheroes, but also you like the adult-oriented comedy of Deadpool. If you like the comic books, if you like the video game that came out a few years ago, this is going to be your cup of tea, and you could definitely tell that the people who worked on this movie cared about the character, knew about the core of the character, and wanted the movie to be true to form. I'm happy to hear that it's being successful in the box office. I certainly hope that there's sequels to this, and shit, I would love to see Deadpool actually get tied in to the other mainstream Marvel movies, the X-Men. Although it's kind of funny, one thing I do want to mention is the fourth wall breaking that Deadpool does tons of times in this movie. For me, one of the funniest jokes was in relation to the X-Men movies, how now you've got these multiple timelines. In one, Patrick Stewart plays Professor Xavier, and another, what was it, John McAvoy. You know, it's the newer line, like the X-Men First Class line, and Deadpool references this in the movie, which is hilarious, and it's just like, that's what I like about Deadpool. He doesn't care that this is a movie. He doesn't take it too seriously. You're just going to sit there for about an hour and a half. You're going to have a great time. You're going to laugh your ass off, and I'll be honest, I'm actually a hard person to make laugh. A lot of movies that I see today, I don't think they're funny. I think they try too hard, and although a few jokes in Deadpool do kind of fall flat in my opinion, I'd say about 85% of the time that they tried to do something funny, I laughed, and that's few and far between today that something can make me laugh that much. That's the kind of thing that Deadpool is. If you like my style of humor, you're gonna like Deadpool. I strongly recommend that you see the movie, and I certainly hope that you enjoy it if you do. So that's it for my reactions, everyone. What did you think about Deadpool? I'd like to hear your reactions, but please don't put too many spoilers in the description of the video. Leave a comment, let everyone know what you thought about the movie, and thanks for watching. Thanks everyone, I'll see you next time for another reactions video. DSP saying peace out, see you then.